Preview. ShockwaveSound.com.
After being a CPA for about 15 years, I went back and got my MBA. And one of the reasons I did was I had worked with physician groups throughout the 1990s during the Clifton era when there was the first wave of consolidation. And many groups in Minnesota and the Midwest were selling to the larger systems, whether it was the Alinas, the Fairviews, the Mayo Clinics. You know, I'd always ask them, why are you selling? And they'd say, oh, you know, we can't afford the new computer systems, i.e. electronic medical record. We don't have the infrastructure from a technology perspective. And all these things, you know, were good reasons, they made sense. But when I stepped back and thought about it, I said they're missing leadership, okay? And not that selling is a failure, but I think most of us want to be a part of an organization that is designed to continue forever, and yet these groups were stepping back and saying, we don't have the capital to grow. We don't have the infrastructure to grow. To me, those are leadership shortfalls. So I went and said, boy, I have the strong technical skills as a CPA, but I don't have the soft skills. And so that's one of the reasons why I went to get my MBA. So over the years, I've worked more and more with groups and organizations as I've seen them, and you know, you start to notice some differences in leadership styles. And I think one of my big takeaways, and one of the things that I hope you'll get to, is I believe that all great leaders are intuitive with the numbers. All great leaders are intuitive with the numbers. Those leaders understand that in order for the organization to be successful, you can have great strategy, you can have great quality care, but boy, if we don't have financial success, we can't recruit the best people, we can't retain the best people, and so there's this balance. So how do they get to become intuitive with the numbers, right? So most of us aren't there, all right, in terms of being good with the numbers, especially on the healthcare side. So how do you, as a physical therapist or other healthcare provider, become intuitive with the numbers? It's not easy, unfortunately. You're learning a foreign language. Accounting and finance is the language of business. We start with, you know, number one, understanding that it is a language, okay? And you're learning a foreign language. You should subscribe to Wall Street Journal or one of the other daily magazines or newspapers, and the mere reading of that newspaper, the Wall Street Journal, I'm going to use the Wall Street Journal. So if you read that every day, you're going to learn more, okay? But you also have to have somebody that you can have the conversation with. Boy, I read this in the Wall Street Journal and I don't understand. And it just so happens that next week is National Take Your Accountant to Lunch Week, okay? So what you should consider, is try to, on a quarterly basis, if not, or a monthly basis, excuse me, meet with somebody that you know that is good with the numbers. And I'm going to use the generic term, an accountant. And through that process, say, boy, I read the Wall Street Journal and I have the question about what do they mean by EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation? Why do companies buy their own stock back as opposed to pay a dividend? And just get this financial mentor on board to help you learn the language so that you can practice some things, okay? So 2 components, daily subscription to the Wall Street Journal and a financial mentor are 2 key components to learning the language of business, accounting and finance, the language of business. Number 2 is, I'm very supportive of formal education. The MBA programs are getting better all the time in terms of they're shorter. Okay, they're now 12 to 24 months where they used to be much longer. So you can get an MBA in a much shorter period of time. So think about getting your MBA. Or there's a lot of online classes, reading and understanding financial statements and things like that. Community college has classes on accounting. Think about how am I going to learn the language if I want to be successful, all right? Because once again, I'm going to go back to my statement, all great leaders are intuitive with financials. Okay, so that's one key point I'd like to talk about. 2, these business leaders have some basis foundation that I think is very consistent. They truly appreciate and understand that people are their greatest resource. Okay, you have to be able to recruit and retain the very best. Okay, once again, don't forget, no money, no mission, right? I need to be able to pay market compensation or slightly above market wages in order to get the very best people. And these leaders inspire and create this emotional ownership so that people do more than what they normally could or would. So that's one. Number 2, they also understand that if a business does not grow, it dies. If a business does not grow, it dies. Why? Because growth is very expensive. If we're going to grow, that creates change. Then we get bigger. Then we get bureaucratic. Gosh, it's just not any fun sometimes when you get too big. However, it is very, very true that if you do not grow, the organization will eventually, shrink. And if you start shrinking, it's a downward spiral. I believe it's a capitalistic situation that we have to live with. If you don't believe in it, your competitor does. So your competitor wants your market share. And, it would be really nice to create a nice little business and stay the same size. But if you do, somebody else is going to take your market share and you'll start shrinking. I think they also understand that businesses have a life cycle and we have to continually innovate in order to stay on the leading edge of new trends and technology and things like that. But the business has to constantly change. So I see that in great leaders. That also has a cost associated with it. They're believers of continuous learning. And ask yourself, now one of the great things is you're here taking this Leadership Edge program, so there's some awareness of belief of continuous learning. Are you here because you want to be, or are you here because you need to be? Okay? How do you develop this love of continuous learning? And I think you will. And that is something that leaders look for and leaders have, is a love of continuous learning. I think of the no money, no mission, and gosh, that's kind of a not-for-profit and a healthcare comment that's made over and over again. And great leaders know how to remind healthcare providers of that in a nice way. Many healthcare providers talk about how they would prefer, well, there's a natural tendency to undercharge or undercode. And because we're here to help people, right? You're there to help people. And we can't do that, okay? We have to code appropriately. We have to see the extra patient. We have to get them in. But that's part of this whole no money, no mission. I remember the time when my son came back from school one day, and he said, "Dad, Mom makes more money than you." And my wife was the school nurse. It was a volunteer or close to a volunteer position. And I said, "RJ, why do you say that?" And he said, "Mom helps people. You just keep track of their money." Okay? And I said, "You're right, RJ. She should make more money than I do." Unfortunately, it's not true, but we need to think about how we keep your organization successful. And part of that is making sure that money goes to the bottom line. I get passionate about the numbers, and I talked to you a little bit about becoming intuitive with the numbers. And let me give you an example of why that's so difficult, okay? And it took me a long time to get there, but here's some numbers. And if you take $100 and you put it in a savings account at 5%, and you do that every year for 100 years, $100 times $100 at 5%, okay? At the end of 100 years, that $10,000, 100 times 100 at 5% equals $261,000. So $10,000 turns to $261,000 100 years from now. Big deal, right? But what if that's 15%? What do you think that $100 a year for 100 years turns into at 15%? I happen to know. $782 million. $782 million. $10,000 turns into $782 million if you can get a 15% return. Okay? What if it's 16%? What do you think that turns into? And the answer is $1.7 billion. 1% more adds $1 billion over 100 years. This is real money, okay? And, that's finance, okay? And the world gravitates towards these types of concepts. And how do you start to learn those? When you're looking at the financial statements for your business, you roll up your sleeves and get dirty and understand what happens if we see one more patient. What happens if you code better? How do we take our profitability from where we are to where we could be? In the small differences, the 1% that can make a difference is incredible, okay? It is the law of large numbers, and a small percentage can make a big difference. So many of you might say, gosh, I don't even see the financial statements. All I get are these, summaries of patients seen or something like that. But that's part of the process, right? Is reaching out and saying, I'd like to learn more. When you do that, number one, you will learn more. It shows your interest in the company from a bigger perspective. But then also, those people that do better, right? In terms of helping the organization get better, are rewarded for that. There's no doubt about it. And you know, it's not about making more money for the shareholders or for the owners of the company or the publicly held. I think that providers should be at the leadership of these decisions, not the accountants, okay? Because you can invest, you have a better idea of how to invest in quality care, okay? Don't let the bean counters drive the ship, okay? Provider should, all right? And even if I am empathetic and have a big heart, I don't fully understand it from a provider perspective. And that's why I think we need therapists and physicians driving healthcare organizations, not the suits. Thank you. Accounting and finance is the language of business. Daily subscription to the Wall Street Journal and a financial mentor. Fully understand no money, no mission. They also understand that if a business does not grow, it dies. How do you develop this love of continuous learning? It is the law of large numbers. All differences, the 1% that can make a difference is incredible. All great leaders are intuitive with the numbers.